Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to repair a Samsung SCX-5835FN when it doesn't turn on. And first of all, I would like to say something about this particular problem because it's not your fault if your printer does not turn on. It's not because a thunderstorm or something else. I think these printers are pretty much prone to having this kind of failure where they when they don't turn on, and it's because of how they designed the power supply board inside of the printer. I will show you exactly how to repair it and what to replace on that board. But before of starting, I will tell you that in order to repair it, you need to replace two capacitors, or maybe more than two capacitors on the actual board. So if you're not confident with soldering on a PCB, I really suggest you to learn a bit about soldering on electronic boards on YouTube, other videos before attempting this repair. Now that I've said this, this video will apply on most of the cases. I mean, in most of the cases when this particular model of printer does not turn on, it's because of that power supply capacitors that explode. But it's not every single time. I mean, there are lots of things that can go wrong inside of a printer like this. So in this video I will cover the most widespread reason why your printer does not turn on. So let's begin. It's a pretty easy repair anyway. So let's begin with the repair. So first of all, let's get to the front side of the machine. Open up, well, first remove the paper tray, and then open up the front cover of the printer. Inside of here, you will have to remove a screw that is inside of this hole right here. Okay, these screws are all the same, by the way. And now we need to remove this screw over here. Fine. Now we need to move the printer to the back. And these printers are pretty heavy, so it's not very easy. Now, let's remove the duplex unit and remove 4 screws on the back panel in order to remove the back panel. So this one, this one, this one, and this one. Okay, now we can just open the back cover and pull it in order to release the entire back panel. So now we need to move the printer to the right side and remove this panel. It's pretty easy. You can see it's pretty loose, by the way. Open the front and remove the right panel. So the part that we need to check is right here. This is the main power supply of the printer, and we need to remove a few screws in order to access it. So first of all, I will disconnect this fan because it's in the way. Well, it's in the cover that we need to remove, and I will remove this screw and this screw. Okay, and now we will be able to remove the top cover or shield of the power supply board. Now, at this point, you have to pay very much attention. So first of all, do not ever touch a power supply if the unit has not been disconnected for a pretty long time. I mean, even a few hours, because this capacitor here holds a very big charge, and if you touch the underside of this with your bare finger, even when the power is not connected, you can get a pretty bad shock. I mean, it's not so much dangerous, but you get a pretty big shock. At this point, we need to unplug a few cables, route this cable out of off here and remove this connector. Okay, and get it aside. Then we need to remove this connector, and this is the fuser unit connector and has a little key, and for a key I mean a button that you have to press in order to remove the cable. I mean, you have to press on here while you wiggle it to remove it. Okay, and the same thing for these connector over here. So you press the key and wiggle it out to remove it. It is a bit stubborn. Okay, so you have to think that these cables have been inside there for a pretty long time, and no one messed around with them, so they are pretty stiff usually. So I need to remove 4 screws on the power supply now. So these 2 on the front side, and these 2 on the back side. These 4 screws are the only screws that are different from the others because they screw into metal and not into plastic. Okay, so having done that, we can actually remove our power supply board, and here it is. So what happens with these boards is that for how they design the board, you can see that there are heat sinks. I mean, these are heat sinks, so they are connected to parts that generate a lot of heat, that are these are MOSFETs or transistors, and they generate really a lot of heat. And what you have really next to the heat sinks, you have capacitors. Yeah, components that really do not like heat. Yeah, really good design by Samsung there. So what happens usually is that a few of these capacitors are bulging or exploded or leaking, and if that happens, the printer will not have the ability to sort of jump start the power supply and the entire printer. So these are already replaced because I was in a hurry to repair this printer, so I had to repair it, but I wanted to show you what I did. So I replaced 2 capacitors on this board because I just was carefully watching to the solder joints. Yeah, these 2 are more shiny, so I replaced this one and that one, so the ones that are most close to the heat generating components. And when you replace capacitors, you have to pay attention to a few different things. So first, you have to choose a capacitor that has the same capacity. So in this case, you can see this one is 1000 microfarad, 25 volts. And I clearly remember that this capacitor originally was 1000 microfarads, not 25 volts. And that's the point. So you can go up in voltage, but you cannot go up in capacity usually. So if you have a capacitor that is, example, 1000 microfarad, 16 volts, you can replace it with a capacitor that is 1000 microfarads, 25 volts, but not a capacitor that is 1500 microfarads, 16 volts. That's the thing that you have to keep in mind. So that's it. Another thing is that these capacitors are polarized. You can see that there's a stripe here indicating a minus sign, and usually capacitors are coded so they show you the negative side. And also on the PCB you can see that there's a reading that is the negative side. If you're not sure, just do a photo of the board and reinstall the capacitors exactly where how you removed them. Solder the joints, and you can reinstall this board inside of the printer. Now, I will not show you how to replace the capacitors for two different reasons. The first reason is that YouTube is really full of videos on how to replace capacitors. So capacitors are one of the components that are most prone to failure, so the YouTube is full of videos of people replacing capacitors of a lot of different stuff. So it's not something like replacing an IC on a main board. It's replacing capacitors, so you can just look online for how to replace a capacitor on a board. Second thing, this board has already been repaired, so because I was in a hurry, as I said. So if I remove these capacitors again and resolder them just to show you, I create more stress on the board. The capacitor legs are heated up again. So generally I don't like to replace capacitor over and over and over again. So if I replace them, yeah, that's it. So we can just now reinsert the power supply board inside of the printer, get the screws back and the connectors back. Remember that these 4 screws that screw on the power supply board itself are metal screws, so it's this kind of screws, where the plastic screws are different. Plastic screws are these ones. You can see that the thread is different and even the length. Now we'll get the screws back and we will try to power it on and see if everything works. But as I said, this printer was already working when I opened it up to show you what's wrong with what was wrong with it when I repaired it. So yeah, now we'll reconnect the fuser cable, mains cable, the other cable. This is for giving power to the PCBs, boards, motors inside of the printer and everything else that is logic, sort of same. Okay, so that is in. Okay, power supply cover, and that goes like this. 2 screws, one goes here and one goes here. Another thing that I want to say is that if you're not feeling confident about replacing the capacitors on this board, you can always look online for a replacement board. I mean, you can replace the entire board. I didn't replace the entire board for 2 reasons. First, it's expensive. I mean, it's not 2 capacitors that aside from the cost of the capacitors, that it's really cents at this day. I already had those capacitors. I pulled them out from other equipment, so this was a free repair for me. But replacing the entire board, it's expensive. So if you want, you can even replace the entire board, but it's expensive, so I didn't do it. So to reinsert the right panel, I suggest you to align it to the top first, okay, and then push it in place. It's pretty easy. So now you can move the printer to the back. It's very heavy, this printer. Install the back panel. Okay, and it's 4 screws. Okay, now we can reinstall the duplex unit. Okay, Now we can move the printer to the front side. Okay. And reinstall the 2 screws on the front. Okay. Now let's get the paper tray inside and power the printer on. See if it works. Power it on. And it's on. Now this printer has a noisy laser, so I don't know if I will find a replacement for it. I will look for it, and eventually, yeah, it's pretty noisy. Eventually, if I will find it, I will make another video on how to replace the laser unit. So thank you for watching the video. I hope it has been useful for you. If so, don't forget to like the video and share if you want. And if you want to support me making these videos, I make these videos in my free time, and I also have a job, so it's not very easy to do and to find the time to do everything that I have to do. So consider leaving a super thanks. You can find the thanks button under the video, and you can support me over there if you want. So thank you once again, and have a good day.